Thanksgiving was supposed to be family only. Mom texted me to find somewhere else to eat. From my office window, I saw them walking into Tbella's restaurant. I called the manager and canceled the Thompson reservation. 20 minutes later, Mom called me asking, "Why won't they seat us?" You know, sometimes life throws you a curveball so sharp, so utterly cold, it leaves you breathless. But what happens when that curveball comes from your own mother, just 2 days before Thanksgiving, telling you you're not real family? That's where my story begins, and trust me, it's a journey you won't believe. It was a Tuesday morning, coffee gone cold on my desk, my mind buzzing with holiday staffing charts. I was Evelyn Marlowe, 31, juggling 7 restaurants, 2 catering companies, nearly 200 employees for Thompson Culinary Holdings, one of the busiest times of the year. Then my phone buzzed. My mother's name flashed, and the message hit me like a physical blow. "Evelyn, we've decided on family only for Thanksgiving this year. Find somewhere else to eat. The reservation at Bella's is just for the real family." Mom. My chest tightened, a cold hand squeezing it. Family only. The real family. The word stung, a familiar, casual cruelty I'd grown up with, but this time, it was different. This was deliberate exile, a knife twisted deep. My fingers trembled as I opened our reservation system and typed Thompson. The irony was like a slap across the face. Thompson, party of 12. Thursday, 4 p.m. Private dining room. Premium holiday menu, wine pairings, seasonal floral arrangements booked under Mrs. Thompson's name. She had excluded me from Thanksgiving dinner, then chosen to host her grand family celebration in Bella's, my flagship restaurant, the crown jewel of my empire. For a long, silent moment, the absurdity pressed down on me. My family had no idea. No idea that the impressive restaurant they so eagerly flaunted was mine, that the experience they booked was created by the daughter they dismissed as an underachiever, a dropout who chased silly food trucks. I leaned back, staring out at the dining floor. Bella's pulsed with life, a testament to my sacrifices, the long nights, the sheer refusal to quit. Chefs moved like a symphony, servers polished glass until it gleamed. The kitchen exhaled aromas of garlic, rosemary, and fresh bread. This was my world, my grit, my success. To them, I was still just Evelyn. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, my general manager. "Good morning, Evelyn. Ready for the big week?" I swallowed, my voice tight. "Marcus, we need to discuss the Thompson reservation for Thursday." "Of course," he said, always professional. Party of 12, private dining room. They requested the premium package. Your mother seemed very excited when she booked it. Said it was going to be a perfect family celebration. The knot in my chest hardened. Perfect family celebration without me. "I need you to cancel that reservation." Marcus paused. You could almost hear his jaw drop. "Cancel?" "Evelyn, it's Tuesday. Thanksgiving is in 2 days. "I know," I cut in. "Nearly a $3,000 booking. The food is ordered. The staff assigned. The room decorated. I'll cover the costs," I said, my voice unwavering. "But the reservation has to go." His voice dropped, hesitant. "May I ask why? Is there an issue with payment?" "It's a personal matter. Please call Mrs. Thompson and inform her Bella's can't accommodate their party." Silence. Then, slower this time, "You realize finding a table for 12 on Thanksgiving will be nearly impossible for them." A bitter laugh rose in my throat. "I'm sure they'll figure something out." After the call, I stood at the window, watching my staff, confident and oblivious. They saw me as a leader, a builder, someone who had climbed from a battered food truck to Michelin stars. My family? To them, I was a misstep, a story they never told with pride. My older brother Michael, the celebrated lawyer. My younger sister Ashley, the nurse with 2 kids. They were the trophies, polished silver at dinner parties. And me? The daughter who worked weekends, holidays, late nights in kitchens, unmarried, without the simple narrative of success they craved. They thought my choices made me less. What they didn't know was that my less had grown into more than they could ever imagine. $12 million in annual revenue, 200 employees, an empire they'd never bothered to ask about. 30 minutes later, Marcus called back. "Evelyn, I reached your mother." She was not pleased. Demanded to speak with the owner directly. A small, tight smile touched my lips. What did you tell her? That the private dining room had a scheduling conflict. She asked about the main dining room, but I said we're fully booked, which is true. Perfect. She said this is ruining their holiday, that she had family flying in. She was very upset. I'm sure she was, I said softly. Then Marcus hesitated, lowering his voice. Evelyn, may I ask something? Why are you canceling your own family's dinner? I stared at the ceiling, willing the answer not to break me. Because they uninvited me, Marcus. Said it was for family only. He was quiet. But your family. Apparently, I whispered, not the right kind. Later, my phone buzzed with messages. Ashley, Mom told me about Thanksgiving. Are you okay? Want to come to our house instead? Michael, Mom just wants to keep it simple this year. Dad, don't take it personally. She's stressed about planning. Each text was a shallow plaster over a deep wound, avoiding the cruelty at the heart of it. Mom wanted me absent. They all knew it was wrong, but none would challenge her. I ignored them. My heart was already beating in a rhythm of steel. This year, I wasn't quietly swallowing their judgment. Not this year. The call came when I knew it would. My mother's voice, trembling with false sweetness. Evelyn, something terrible happened. Bella's canceled our reservation 2 days before Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting back a laugh. Oh no, that's awful. Which restaurant? Bella's. It was perfect. Everything arranged, and now it's ruined. Your Uncle Robert's flying in, your cousin Mary driving from Phoenix. Everyone was coming. Evelyn, you work in restaurants. Do you know anyone who could help us find a place, somewhere elegant? I stared at the ceiling, the irony almost blinding. My mother, who had just excluded me, was now asking me to save her holiday. I might know some people, I said, carefully. What kind of place are you looking for? Somewhere impressive. You know how Robert brags about his children? We wanted to show the family we're doing well. Bella's was perfect. So exclusive. 3 stars. We were so excited to tell everyone we'd be dining there. My grip on the phone tightened. Impressive. Exclusive. Perfect. Not a word about love. Not a word about family. Let me see what I can do, I told her. As I hung up, a thought burned in my chest, equal parts pain and fierce resolve. If my family wanted a performance, then maybe it was time I stepped onto the stage. The curtain was about to rise. The rest of that Tuesday unfolded with my phone vibrating like a restless insect on my desk. My family, suddenly anxious, suddenly aware of the storm brewing around Thanksgiving, started reaching out. Each message carried the same flavor, concern laced with evasion, as if they wanted to look compassionate without risking my mother's disapproval. Ashley's text arrived first. Mom told me about Thanksgiving. Are you okay? Do you want to come to our house instead? I stared at it for a long moment, my stomach twisting. Ashley meant well. She always did. But there was no hint of outrage, no indignation that our mother had dismissed me as not real family. Just an offering like scraps brushed off a table. Come to our house. Second choice. Second place. Then Michael's message. Mom just wants to keep it simple this year. Simple. The word clanged in my mind like a cruel joke. Excluding a daughter wasn't simplicity, it was strategy. My brother, the lawyer, always found ways to phrase things so the ugliness vanished behind neat language. Dad's came last. Your mother is stressed. Don't take it personally. I laughed, sharp and humorless. How else was I supposed to take it? As I sat with their words, the old ache of being misunderstood rose again. To them, I was the dropout who never followed the plan. I was the cautionary tale, the black sheep who traded courtrooms for food trucks. They never asked what those trucks had become. They never cared to understand how I built kitchens out of nothing, how I led teams with fire in my chest. The truth? I had missed countless birthdays and anniversaries, not because I didn't care, but because I was in the trenches of something bigger than myself. While they toasted champagne at family dinners, I was elbows deep in dough, perfecting recipes, negotiating with suppliers, training young chefs who believed in me. My sacrifices had built Bella's, had carved a culinary empire from thin air. And yet my mother's voice still echoed. Family only. That evening, the city lights outside my office shimmered against the glass. I stayed late, scribbling notes, a restless energy humming through me. For the first time in years, I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. Anger that tasted almost electric, sharper than the knives I'd once used in cramped food trucks. My phone rang again. I almost ignored it, but when I saw the name Mom, I picked up. Her voice trembled with false sweetness. "Evelyn, I'm so glad you answered. We're in a terrible bind. Bella's was perfect, and now we have nothing. Do you know how humiliating it is? Uncle Robert's flying in tomorrow. Your cousin Mary's on the road already. We can't possibly tell them there's no plan. Can you help us? You must have connections." I pressed my lips together, forcing my voice calm. "I might know some people, but Mom, why did you decide on family only in the first place?" A pause, thick and awkward. "We just wanted to keep it simple." Simple. I let the word hang in the air. Am I not family? Of course you are, sweetheart, but you work so much. You miss so many dinners. We thought you'd be more comfortable doing your own thing. Doing my own thing. I bit back the bitterness rising in my throat. Or was it because you wanted to impress Uncle Robert? She bristled. What are you implying? That maybe you thought my being there would ruin the image? Silence stretched. Then she sighed, weary. You don't understand, Evelyn. Your brother is thriving in law. Ashley has a wonderful family, and Robert always compares his children's successes. It's exhausting. I just wanted the evening to be impressive. Her words burned. And you thought leaving me out would make it more impressive. I didn't mean it that way. You did, I said quietly. You meant it exactly that way. We ended the call on a brittle note, her pleading for me to make some calls, me promising only that I'd see what I could do. Afterward, I paced my office, thoughts sharp and jagged. This was about more than a dinner. This was about years of dismissal, about the way my family crafted a narrative where I was always the outsider. I could feel the weight of their judgments pressing against my ribs. But beneath it, something else stirred, resolve. They thought I was powerless. They thought I was a failed dreamer clinging to food trucks. They had no idea that the very ground beneath their feet, the dinner they craved so desperately, belonged to me. That night, I pulled out old photographs. Me in a flower-streaked apron, standing in front of my first truck, grinning with exhaustion. A younger me, eyes fierce with ambition, even as grease clung to her clothes. My family had seen that girl as a joke. They never stayed long enough to watch her transform. And now, the irony was delicious. They were begging for help, and the help they needed came from the daughter they cast aside. By Wednesday morning, the calls increased. Ashley left a voicemail, her voice tight with worry. Mom's panicking. Evelyn, she's calling everywhere. No one has space for 12 people. She's crying. Could you maybe, I don't know, reach out to some of your contacts? I could almost hear the unspoken words, fix this. Save us. But why should I? A part of me wanted to let them scramble, let the dinner collapse into fast food or chain restaurants. Let Uncle Robert see the cracks in the perfect facade. Yet another part, quieter but insistent, knew this was my chance. Not just to help, but to be seen. To force them to face the truth they'd ignored for years. I dialed Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Evelyn, has my mother called back? 3 times, he said grimly, each more desperate than the last. She asked if we could recommend other restaurants. I gave her names, but honestly, everything's booked. She was on the verge of tears. Tears. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. My mother wasn't evil, I reminded myself. Just vain, image-obsessed, shallow in ways that hurt more than she realized. She hadn't excluded me out of malice. She'd excluded me because she was embarrassed. That truth cut deeper than hatred. Marcus, I said, my voice steady now. What if we gave them the reservation back? He hesitated. You want to reinstate it? Yes, but with one change. What change? The party of 12 becomes a party of 13. His intake of breath crackled over the line. You mean, you'll be joining them? Yes. After they uninvited you? Exactly, I said. If they want their perfect dinner, they'll have to make room for me. He was quiet for a long beat. Then that's bold. It's necessary. As I ended the call, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For years, I had let their judgments define me. But this Thanksgiving, I would no longer be invisible. The stage was being set. And whether my family liked it or not, I was stepping into the spotlight. Wednesday evening, the city pulsed with holiday anticipation. Streets glittered with early lights, stores crowded with last-minute shoppers. And yet, inside my office, time felt frozen. I sat alone, staring at my phone, knowing the next move would change everything. The decision had already been made. My family would get their precious dinner back, but on my terms. When I finally called my mother, her voice answered in a rush of desperation. "Evelyn, please tell me you found something. Everything is booked." I can't believe Bella's would cancel like that. It's humiliating. "Robert arrives tomorrow and Mom," I interrupted softly. "I might be able to help." The silence on her end was sharp with hope. "Really? You can? Evelyn, you'd be saving us." "How?" "I have some connections," I said carefully. "I know so. Mion who might have influence at Bella's." "Oh, Evelyn. That would be incredible. You're a lifesaver. What do we need to do?" "There's one condition," I said. Her breath hitched. "Condition?" "Yes. The reservation will be for 13 people, not 12. The silence stretched so long I could hear my own pulse. Finally, she whispered, 13? But who would the 13th be? "Me," I answered. The quiet that followed was louder than any shout. My mother's voice, when it came, was strained. "Evelyn, we just assumed you'd be too busy." "Busy or not, I'm family," I said. "And if Bella's reopens that dining room for you, then I will be seated at that table." She inhaled sharply, and I pictured her pacing the kitchen floor, phone pressed to her ear, pride and panic wrestling in her chest. "Evelyn, this dinner, it's important. We wanted to show the family that we're doing well. Robert brags about his children constantly, and you thought I'd spoil the picture." I finished for her. "No, sweetheart, that's not. It's exactly that," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "So, here's the deal. 13 people or none at all. That's the only way you'll walk into Bella's tomorrow night." Her breath trembled over the line, then soft. "All right. 13. A strange satisfaction unfurled in my chest, but it wasn't triumph. It was something darker, heavier. For the first time, my mother was bargaining with me, not dismissing me. "Good," I said. "I'll make some calls." We hung up and I sat in the dim light of my office, staring at the city skyline. The irony was so thick it felt surreal. My mother, who had deemed me unworthy of family Thanksgiving, was begging me for access to my own restaurant. Marcus knocked gently before stepping inside. "You wanted to see me?" I nodded. "I'm reinstating the Thompson reservation. Party of 13 this time." His brows lifted, but he didn't question. "Consider it done. I'll adjust the order and staffing." "Thank you," I said. Then, almost to myself, "Tomorrow they'll sit in that room and eat, and for the first time they'll see me clearly." Marcus studied me, cautious. "Evelyn, do you want them to know?" I met his eyes. "Not yet. Not all at once. Tonight, they just think I pulled strings. Tomorrow, they'll learn the truth." He nodded slowly, as though he understood I wasn't talking about logistics anymore, but about years of silence and dismissal, all boiling toward a single evening. After he left, I lingered by the window, remembering the years in the truck, waking before dawn to chop vegetables in freezing air. The nights I collapsed on stiff mattresses in borrowed apartments, wondering if I'd made the worst mistake of my life. The ridicule, my mother's sighs, my father's weary looks, Michael's smug jokes about gourmet tacos. And yet through it all, I had believed. I had built. And now Bella's gleamed like a jewel, 3 Michelin stars crowning what they once called a fantasy. Tomorrow when they walked through those doors, they wouldn't be able to dismiss me anymore. Late that night, Ashley called. Unlike Mom, her tone carried genuine worry. "Evelyn, is it true? Did you get the reservation back?" "Yes," I said simply. "Oh, thank God." Mom was hysterical. "She said you worked a miracle. I don't know how you pulled it off, but thank you." Her gratitude warmed me, but beneath it, I sensed the same blind spot as always. They had no idea I was the miracle. "Ashley," I asked quietly, "did it ever bother you that Mom called it family only?" There was a pause. "Of course it did, but you know how she is. She didn't mean it literally. She meant it enough to exclude me. Ashley sighed, guilt heavy in her voice. I just didn't want to make it worse. That was the story of my family. No one wanted to make it worse, so they all let it be bad. When the call ended, I sat in the dark, the city lights painting my reflection across the glass. Tomorrow, I thought, would be more than dinner. It would be theater. My family wanted a perfect image for Uncle Robert. I would give them one, but the image wouldn't be theirs. It would be mine, for once. I would not be the forgotten daughter in the background. I would be the revelation sitting at the head of the table, the truth they couldn't escape. As midnight neared, I whispered into the empty room, words no one else could hear. Tomorrow, they'll learn whose house they're really dining in. Thanksgiving morning dawned gray and restless, the kind of day where the sky feels low enough to touch. Bella's kitchen was already alive with energy by 8 a.m. Steam rising from simmering pots, knives clattering against cutting boards, chefs moving with precision born of weeks of preparation. I walked the floor quietly, taking it all in. This was my kingdom, my empire in motion. But tonight, it would double as a stage for a play my family didn't even know they were part of. By mid-morning, my phone rang. Predictably, it was Mom. Her voice carried forced brightness. Evelyn, thank you again for pulling strings. Bella's actually reinstated us. I don't know how you managed it, but it's a miracle. You're amazing. Her praise was so syrupy it almost made me laugh. A week ago, I was too busy, too embarrassing to sit at her table. Now, I was amazing. I'm glad it worked out, I said, keeping my tone steady. I told your father. You must know someone very important. Who is it? The manager? The chef? I let silence stretch a moment before replying. Someone with influence. Her laugh was nervous. Well, thank heavens you do. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. Robert's already in town, and he was impressed when he heard we were dining here. He always brags about his son, the surgeon, and his daughter, the investment banker. You know, this was our chance to show we're doing just as well. Her words landed like stones in my chest, not joy about being together, not excitement about sharing a holiday, just bragging rights. Just image. Mom, I said softly. Do you ever wonder why I'm not someone you brag about? She hesitated. Evelyn, that's not fair, is it? Michael's law practice, Ashley's family. You parade them around like trophies. What am I to you? There was a long pause, then quietly. You're different. Different. The word I'd lived under my whole life, wielded like a polite knife. We ended the call soon after, her voice growing brittle with defensiveness, mine cool with determination. By afternoon, my siblings started messaging. Michael, pragmatic as always, Mom says you saved Thanksgiving. Whatever you did, thanks. His words were efficient, emotionless, like a business transaction. Ashley, softer, I'm glad you'll be with us tonight. It wouldn't feel right without you. Her sincerity almost soothed me, but only almost. At 3 o'clock sharp, Marcus appeared in my office. Everything's ready. Private dining room is set. Staff prepped. The Thompsons will be here at 4. Good, I said, straightening my jacket. He studied me with quiet concern. You don't have to do this, you know. You could just let them eat. Let them leave. Keep your secret safe. I met his gaze. No, Marcus. Tonight, the secret ends. At 4 o'clock, the Thompson family arrived. I watched from the shadows of the dining room entrance as they poured in. Michael in his tailored suit, Ashley balancing a toddler on one hip, Dad looking tired but content, Mom glowing with pride. They admired the chandeliers, the polished wood, the elegance of Bella's private dining room. And then they saw me. Mom blinked, startled, before forcing a smile. Evelyn, you're here. I am, I said, stepping forward. 13, remember? A hush fell as I joined them at the long table. My siblings exchanged uncertain glances, but no one spoke. Finally, Uncle Robert, tall and imposing with a booming voice, broke the silence. Well, now, Evelyn, good to see you. What do you do these days? Still tinkering with food trucks. The words hit like a slap, though his tone was genial. He didn't mean harm. He simply didn't know. I smiled faintly. Something like that. Dinner began with forced pleasantries. Wine poured into crystal glasses, silverware clinking against fine china. Conversations swirled around Michael's cases, Ashley's children, Robert's endless boasting about his own. I stayed quiet, listening, the outsider, even at my own table. Until Robert turned back to me. "And you, Evelyn, tell us more. Your mother said you helped secure this reservation. That must mean you have powerful friends in the industry." I saw Mom stiffen, her fork pausing midair. She hadn't expected the spotlight to swing my way so soon. "I do," I said, letting the word settle. "But not in the way you think." Michael chuckled lightly. "Come on, Evelyn. Don't be mysterious. Who do you know?" "A maitre d', a wine supplier." I set my glass down deliberately. "I know the owner." The table went still. Mom laughed too quickly. Yes, she knows the owner. That's how we got back in." "No," I said, my voice sharper now. "I am the owner." The silence that followed was profound. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Eyes widened. Air thickened with disbelief. "You?" Robert asked, incredulous. "You own Bella's?" I held his gaze steadily. "I do. Bella's and 6 other restaurants, 2 catering companies. Together they employ over 200 people. Last year we grossed $12 million. Michael blinked. Ashley's lips parted. Dad set down his glass with a muted clink. "And Mom?" Mom's face strained of color. "I thought," she whispered, "I thought you were still with food trucks." "I was," I said evenly. "That's where it started. But you never asked what it became." The silence was heavier now, shame coiling through it. I could see the cracks spreading across my mother's carefully constructed image. For years, she had carried the story of her struggling, unconventional daughter. And now, in front of Robert, in front of everyone, that story had collapsed. Robert was the first to recover. "Remarkable," he said, voice booming again. "From a truck to an empire. That's the kind of grit I admire. You must be very proud, Margaret." Mom swallowed, her hands trembling against her napkin. "Yes," she said, her voice faint. "Yes, I am." But her eyes, when they met mine, carried not pride, but a storm, shame, regret, and something close to fear. The dinner continued, but the air had changed. My siblings stole glances at me, some curious, some unsettled. Robert peppered me with questions, genuinely impressed. While my mother sat in brittle silence, her facade cracking with each answer I gave. When dessert arrived, she finally leaned toward me, her voice breaking. "Evelyn, why didn't you tell us?" I turned to her, meeting her gaze. "Because you never asked." Her eyes glistened, tears threatening. "I was wrong." "Yes," I said softly. "You were." The table around us buzzed with conversation. But between us, only silence stretched, a silence that said everything. Tonight wasn't about food. It wasn't about celebration. It was about truth, finally dragged into the light, raw and undeniable. And the truth was this: the daughter she thought was a disappointment had become the one person she could no longer ignore. The revelation lingered in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. I watched my mother's face shift through shock, denial, and reluctant acknowledgement as she forced herself to swallow the truth. For years, she had told relatives I was finding my way, that I was still experimenting. Now she sat in a 3-star dining room run by the very empire she dismissed. Uncle Robert leaned back in his chair, his booming voice slicing through the tension. "This is extraordinary, Evelyn. Truly. Starting with nothing and building all this. That's the American dream." He raised his glass in a toast, but the gesture only deepened the discomfort at our table. Ashley smiled at me timidly, almost as if she were discovering me for the first time. Michael, however, shifted in his seat, his jaw tight. He was used to being the shining star, the success story Mom paraded at every gathering. Now, with Robert's admiration directed squarely at me, he looked like a man watching his crown slip away. "I didn't know you were doing that well," he said finally, voice clipped. $12 million. 7 restaurants. That's impressive. Impressive. The word landed like an afterthought. Begrudging and hollow. I leaned forward slightly. "You could have known, Michael. Any of you could have if you'd ever asked." He looked away, fiddling with the stem of his glass. Dinner carried on, but every bite felt like performance. Conversations circled Michael's cases and Ashley's children, then returned again and again to me, Robert's curiosity unstoppable. 7 restaurants? Do you manage them all yourself? How do you balance quality? What about investors? Each question gave me a chance to pull back another curtain, to show them what they had chosen not to see. And with each answer, I felt both vindication and sorrow. Vindication that they finally recognized my worth. Sorrow that it had taken $signs to earn it. At one point, Robert turned to my mother. "You must be so proud, Margaret, a daughter who built an empire from a food truck. That takes vision." Her smile was stiff, her voice brittle. "Yes, of course I'm proud." But her eyes betrayed her, flickering with shame. Finally, I spoke directly to her. "Mom, do you realize what happened here? You uninvited me from Thanksgiving dinner because you were embarrassed. Then you begged me to save the dinner you planned, not knowing it was mine to give. And now you sit here pretending pride because Robert admires me." The table stilled. Ashley whispered, "Evelyn." But I held up a hand. "No," I said, louder now. "It's time we stopped pretending. You thought I was failing. You thought I was less. And you decided that meant I didn't belong at this table." Mom's lip trembled. "Evelyn, please. This isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I cut in, "because for once you can't look away. For once, you can't reduce me to a footnote in the family story." The words hung heavy. Dad cleared his throat, his deep voice rumbling. "Evelyn, your mother just didn't understand. None of us did. But tonight proves how wrong we were." His attempt at peace felt hollow. Understanding after the fact wasn't absolution. Michael finally snapped, his voice edged with defensiveness. "You can't blame Mom for not bragging about you. She didn't know. You kept it hidden." I turned to him, my voice steady. "Did I? Or did you never ask? You never wanted to hear about my work because you assumed it didn't matter." Ashley's eyes brimmed with tears. "She's right," she whispered. "We never asked." The silence that followed was brutal. My mother's hands twisted her napkin into shreds, her composure unraveling with it. Uncle Robert, perhaps sensing the storm, tried to lighten the mood. "What matters now is that you've built something remarkable. Families misunderstand each other sometimes. Tonight can be a new beginning." But for me, the moment wasn't about smoothing over. It was about truth. I looked at my mother, her eyes glossy, her lips quivering. "Tell me honestly," I said. "Were you sorry because you hurt me? Or sorry because you didn't know I was successful?" The question cut through the air like a blade. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally whispered, "Both." I leaned back, studying her. "Which matters more?" Her tears slipped free. "Excluding you. That's what I regret most. Not your success. Just forgetting that you were my daughter before anything else." The admission cracked something inside me. For a moment, I saw not the image-obsessed woman desperate to impress her brother, but a mother realizing the damage she had caused. Yet doubt still lingered. Would she have felt that regret if the truth hadn't come out in such spectacular fashion? Dessert arrived, pumpkin tartlets, cinnamon gelato, but the sweetness only highlighted the bitterness in the air. Conversation stumbled along awkwardly, the earlier bravado drained from the room. During a lull, Mom reached under the table and squeezed my hand. Her grip was shaky but earnest. "I'm proud of you, Evelyn," she whispered. "Not for the money, for the strength, for never giving up, even when I didn't believe in you." I met her gaze, searching for sincerity. For the first time, I thought I saw it. Still, I held her hand only lightly. "Then, prove it," I murmured. "Don't just say it tonight because Robert's listening. Prove it when no one else is watching." Her tears spilled faster and she nodded. By the time coffee was served, the battle lines had softened. My siblings, tentative but warmer, asked small questions about my work. Dad looked at me with a mix of pride and guilt. And Mom, quiet and subdued, clung to my words like lifelines. But beneath the fragile peace, I knew the night wasn't over. Thanksgiving dinner had exposed wounds too deep to close with one confession. As we left the table, I caught my reflection in the polished glass doors of Bella's. My posture straight, my chin high. For once, I wasn't invisible. For once, the family had been forced to see me as I truly was. But what they would do with that truth, that was a question for another day. The night after Thanksgiving, I lay awake long after the city had quieted, replaying every word, every glance across that table. The dinner itself was flawless. Bella's staff executed it with the elegance I demanded, each course arriving like a work of art. But beneath the perfection of the meal, emotions had tangled into a web too tight to ignore. I could still see my mother's face as she confessed regret. Her voice raw, stripped of the usual armor of pride. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that for once she had looked past appearances and seen me. But another part of me, older, wounded, whispered doubts. Would she still have felt remorse if Uncle Robert hadn't been there, watching, listening, weighing our family against his own? The next morning, Ashley called. Her voice was hesitant, as though she was stepping carefully across the ice. Evelyn, last night was intense, but I'm glad you were there. Really glad. Are you? I asked softly. Yes, she said firmly. I know we've let you carry this distance alone. We should have asked more, cared more. I'm sorry for that. Her words warmed me, but they also carried guilt. My sister had always been kind, but passive. She'd never defended me, never challenged Mom's narrative. And yet, hearing her apology now felt like a bridge being tentatively rebuilt. Later that day, Michael texted a clipped message. You've done well. Congrats. Nothing more. His pride wouldn't let him say what needed saying, but even that begrudging acknowledgement was more than he'd ever given me before. Still, it was my mother's silence that echoed loudest. She didn't call. She didn't text. She simply disappeared into the quiet of her house, and I couldn't tell if she was ashamed or simply overwhelmed. Days passed. Work consumed me again, the endless machinery of the restaurant world, holiday parties to coordinate, catering contracts to finalize. But beneath the surface, I felt a tug I couldn't ignore. The dinner had cracked something open, but cracks left alone either heal or spread. I needed to know which it would be. A week later, I drove to my parents' house. The front lawn still bore the remnants of autumn, leaves scattered like forgotten confetti. Inside, the air smelled of cinnamon candles and something older, heavier, like unspoken words. Mom was in the kitchen folding laundry at the counter, her movements mechanical. When she saw me, she froze. Evelyn, she whispered. I set my bag down, heart pounding. We need to talk. She nodded, eyes glistening. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had once done homework, where she had once scolded me for grades that weren't good enough, where silence had been louder than praise. Why didn't you call? I asked. Her hands twisted the fabric in her lap. Because I didn't know what to say. Everything I said that night sounded wrong. I didn't want to hurt you more. You already did, I said quietly. For years, you made me feel like I was less than my siblings, like what I was building didn't count. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was wrong. I thought success had to look a certain way. A law degree, a family, something easy to explain at dinner parties. I didn't see that what you built was greater than any of that. Her honesty shook me. For years, I had begged silently for her recognition. And now, finally, it was here. Yet it wasn't triumph I felt. It was grief for the years wasted, the years unloved. Do you know what hurt most? I asked. She looked up. What? That you didn't even ask. You never wanted to know what my work really was. You never asked how I was surviving or if I was happy. You just assumed I was failing. She covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing softly. I know, and I hate myself for it. I reached across the table, hesitated, then laid my hand over hers. If you mean that, then things have to change, not just words, Mom. She nodded fiercely, gripping my hand. They will, I promise. That promise became the seed of something new. Over the next months, she began showing up, not with judgment, but with curiosity. She visited Bella's during the day, meeting my staff, asking questions about supply chains and menu planning. At first, her questions were awkward, fumbling, but slowly she began to understand. She even volunteered at our charity dinner, serving meals to families who had nothing. For the first time, I saw her humbled, moved by the weight of lives outside her own image. Still, doubt lingered in me. Was she proud because she finally saw me or because she finally had something to brag about? One evening, after a long day of service, I drove her home. In the quiet of the car, she said, "I used to tell myself I wanted to protect you from disappointment. But the truth is, I was the one disappointed. Disappointed that you weren't what I imagined, and that was my failure, not yours." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to lose you again, Evelyn. Tell me what I can do to make this right." I pulled the car to the curb, tears pricking my eyes. "Just be my mother. Not my judge, not my critic, just my mother." She nodded, reaching for my hand. And for the first time in years, I let her hold it. But even as hope stirred, a shadow remained. Families don't transform overnight. Patterns carve deep grooves, and climbing out of them takes time. I didn't know if we could ever erase the years of dismissal. But maybe, just maybe, we could start again. That night, alone in my apartment, I stood by the window overlooking the city. Lights flickered across the skyline, vibrant and alive. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a cautious peace. I had demanded truth at that Thanksgiving table, and I had received it. Painful, imperfect, but real. The question that lingered was whether the truth would be enough to build something lasting, or whether it was just a fragile truce waiting to crack. 6 months slipped by like pages turning in a book, each chapter a cautious step towards something new between my mother and me. At first, I expected her attention to fade, that once the shine of my revelation dulled, she would retreat to her old ways, clinging to Michael's courtroom victories and Ashley's family stories. But to my surprise, she didn't. She came to Bella's often, not as a customer demanding special treatment, but as a guest who genuinely wanted to understand. She asked questions about the menu, about how I sourced ingredients, even about staffing challenges. She lingered in the kitchen, watching the chefs at work, marveling at the choreography of it all. The first time she volunteered at our charity gala, handing plates of roasted chicken to families who had nothing, I watched her face change. The pride she had once reserved for appearances melted into something softer, more grounded. For the first time, I saw her moved, not by what others would say, but by what she was actually witnessing. And yet, the doubt never fully left me. Every time she introduced me to someone new, her voice carried an edge of triumph. "This is my daughter, Evelyn. She owns Thompson Culinary Holdings, 7 restaurants, 2 catering companies, 3 Michelin stars." Her words were glowing, rehearsed, almost too polished. I wondered if she was proud of me or proud of what I had become to others. One night, after a late service, we sat together at Bella's bar. The restaurant had emptied, the air rich with the lingering scent of garlic and wine. She sipped tea while I unwound with a glass of water. "Evelyn," she said, her tone tentative. "I've been thinking a lot about that night, Thanksgiving, about how I excluded you." I kept my eyes on the glass in my hands, and she swallowed hard. "I realized now it wasn't about you. It was about me, about my fear that you'd make me look small compared to Robert's children. I was shallow, and I let that fear dictate everything. I will regret that for the rest of my life." Her honesty pierced me. I searched her face for insincerity, but all I saw was vulnerability. Still, I asked the question that haunted me. If I hadn't been successful, if I really had been barely scraping by with a food truck, would you still regret excluding me? Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Yes, because I excluded my daughter. Not my resume, not my net worth, my daughter." The simplicity of her words nearly undid me. I wanted to believe her, but part of me still held back, because love tested in success is easy. Love tested in failure, that's what proves truth. Over the months, small moments gave me reason to hope. She no longer asked about profit margins first. Instead, she asked if I was sleeping enough, eating enough, finding joy in the chaos. She attended Ashley's kids' soccer games and Michael's legal seminars with the same enthusiasm she once reserved only for bragging rights. It was as though she was finally learning that being present mattered more than being impressive. But the question lingered in my heart. Was this real change, or was it just another performance? This time, directed at me. Spring melted into summer, and Bella's hosted our annual charity dinner. My mother arrived early wearing an apron I'd given her, hair tied back, cheeks flushed with anticipation. She carried trays, chatted with volunteers, laughed with children. At one point, I caught her watching me across the room, pride in her eyes that wasn't coated in polish. It was raw, unfiltered. In that moment, I let myself breathe. Later that night, as we closed the restaurant, she pulled me aside. "Evelyn," she said, gripping my hand tightly. "Thank you for letting me in, for giving me another chance. I don't deserve it, but I want to earn it every day." Her words softened something inside me that had been stone for years. And yet, when I lay in bed afterwards staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop the thought that threaded through me. People change, but do they ever fully change? Or do they simply learn to play a different role? I remembered that Thanksgiving table, her hands trembling as she admitted shame. I remembered the way her eyes flicked toward Robert, desperate not to lose face. And I remembered the years before, when my worth to her had been measured against everyone else's expectations. The truth was, I didn't know if she loved me for who I was or if she had simply replaced disappointment with pride. But maybe, I realized, that was enough for now. Because what mattered most wasn't her perfection. It was her effort. The Thanksgiving dinner at Bella's became a story we told often. A family legend of sorts. My siblings retold it with laughter, glossing over the pain, remembering only the drama of the revelation. For them, it was entertainment. For me, it was something deeper, a turning point, both painful and liberating. I had walked into that room invisible and walked out undeniable. Now, whenever Mom bragged about me, I listened with cautious patience. Sometimes it annoyed me, sometimes it warmed me, but I learned not to live for her approval because the greatest transformation that night wasn't hers, it was mine. I no longer needed their validation. I had seen what I was capable of, and I had spoken the truth they couldn't silence. Success had taught me many lessons about sacrifice, leadership, and ambition. But my family taught me something greater, that real strength is not in proving others wrong. It's in standing firm in who you are, whether they ever recognize it or not. My mother still brags about Thanksgiving at Bella's. She tells everyone how her daughter owns the restaurant, how she built an empire from a truck. And maybe she does it partly for image. Maybe she always will. But beneath that, I've seen the quieter moments, her volunteering at events, her listening instead of dismissing, her learning to say, "I'm proud of you," without needing an audience. Maybe that's redemption. Or maybe it's just another illusion. Either way, I've stopped waiting for certainty because I no longer need to be chosen to know I belong.